One. P. Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. Let me introduce the crew and then we'll introduce the topic and the albums. Ryan Scow is here as always. Nick Franco's in the house today. Good to have you back,
Yes.
Nick.
Wow. Thank you. Good to be here.
Count Ralphus Ralph Tambora is here. And the Cans himself, Chris Canzaneri, is also in the house. We are expecting Steve Keeler at any minute. He'll be dropping in when he gets here, but we figured we'd get started on today's album war. It is death metal debut classics, five of them going head to head against each other. We will pick a winner. Hopefully, we'll pick a winner. Hopefully, we
Mhm.
won't have a five-way tie, but we'll see. We have no way of knowing. We've got Severed Survival from Autopsy. I know there's other cover. This is the other cover available. I kind of like that cover a little bit better.
The other
Yeah,
one.
that's the original. Yeah, I like this better, Ryan. I don't know.
I
It's
do
Oh,
like that
I
one
do
too.
too. I love that. I love the original way more.
yeah.
But I got shirts of both of them.
Okay, well
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
like I got a shirt with the surgeon one. I kind of dig it.
How about Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel? We got Onward to Golgotha by the great Incantation. John McEntee, if you're watching, we love you, buddy. We got Dawn of Possession by Immolation. And last but not least, Effigy of the Forgotten by Suffocation. That's this bad boy right there. It's two for one. So we got some New York bands here. We got Florida, a little bit of everything, right? Where's what would you say Incantation were based out of?
They're New Jersey originally, but they
Jersey
played New
originally?
York constantly. They gig New York like a New York band, but
Yeah,
they're definitely more of a Jersey.
Yeah, like somewhere in Bergen County, I think, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they were
Lodi.
always right there in New York, so they were a big part of the New York scene.
Gotcha. So, when we were getting set to do this episode, we knew we wanted to. I mean, we've had a lot of folks who watch this show on the channel asking for more extreme metal. So I kind of wanted to do a death metal. We did debut albums by like for Doom recently, and we did some for New Wave of British Heavy Metal. And I thought death metal would be a good way to go next. But then we came up with so many death metal debut classics. So we actually have enough in the bank for three episodes if we want to do them over the next couple of months. So this will be the first. We've got 10 more album classics that we want to put into these album wars. So we'll see how this one goes. But one of the things we joked about before we started taping is that how difficult this particular one is because all five of these are such legendary classic albums in the history of death metal, and any one of these could be a number one on any given day for any of us, I think. So that kind of made it fun but difficult when we were going to re-listening and trying to re-rank these for ourselves. So that's what we're gonna do. I've got my scorecard. We're gonna start here. Let's start with Ryan. Ryan, give us your number five and four. We'll go a couple times around here.
All right. Well, as you said, this is a very difficult one because these are all very good albums. So when you mention this, my number one was locked in immediately. It hasn't changed one bit. And the other four, however, I've juggled around quite a bit. So my number five, I'm going to go with the band I've seen the most. I'm going to go with Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten. I think it's their best album. Uh, this album features their best drummer ever, in my opinion, Mike Smith. Dude puts on a fucking racket on the drum kit. And all of these bands, in my opinion, have all these albums and bands in general, but all these albums have phenomenal, fucking phenomenal drummers. And this one is no exception. You got Frank Mullen on vocals, awesome vocalist. Terrence Hobbs, Doug Cerrito, and I had to look it up. The bassist on this album was Josh Barone. And the art was done, of course, by the amazing, famous Dan Seagrave. So this was a case of this is a fantastic album. I think it's Suffocation's best. It's certainly my favorite Suffocation album. Whenever they play these songs live, Legion, Veracity, Jesus Wept, Infecting the Crypts. It's fucking great stuff. And I never was really a big fan of bands like kind of like mixing in like those like brutal like breakdowns. But there's an exception like where they kind of invented it more or less, and they did it better, in my opinion, than anybody. And this album does it better than pretty much anybody. So like we've said on other episodes, something's got to be number five. So sorry, Terrence. It's number five for you guys. But number four, this was all right. This is tough. Uh, this is my favorite. So this is of all these bands, this is my favorite like East Coast death metal band. But I like other albums by them more, so I ended up putting it as number four. And I feel kind of guilty doing it because it's a 10 out of 10 out of 10 album. And that is Dawn of Possession. Uh, I feel really guilty saying that, but I like the next couple Immolation albums a little more. Like this one still had like a lot of their thrash roots because they started as a rigor mortis in the '80s and they really had like a big thrash metal base, which I love. And this album does it very fucking well. But following this, they got just weird, like Here and After and Failures for Gods are such weird, convoluted albums. I like that sound. It's just fucked up and weird. And I think that's where Bob Vigna really like came into his own as like this legend. But man, you can't fault any track on this album. To this day, they still play Into Everlasting Fire and the title track Immolation quite a bit. So I've heard those songs a lot, but they'll dig into this album quite a bit. Man, every song on here, the title track Dawn of Possession, Those Left Behind, just a perfect album. Great fucking artwork. I have this on a couple shirts, patches, and everything. Uh, yeah, I felt bad saying Immolation number four. I really feel kind of dirty and guilty about it, but it's just a matter of fact that I just think their later albums are just a little fucking bit better. So that's my number five, my number four.
I think we all feel a little guilty about having any of these not be number one, right? So
Yeah, they
Yeah.
all
I think I can
easily be
speak for
number one.
everybody. Any of these could be number one. That's how good.
They're all worthy of the title. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Ralph, what do you got for your first two here?
All right, so yeah, like someone says it almost every time we do one of these, but this is the hardest one ever for me. Out of all these, every one of these albums is a 10 out of 10 for me. I was around seeing these bands all play, except for Autopsy. I was seeing them all like at this time when they were playing, and it's just like friggin' really ridiculous to pick anyone at number five. But I'm gonna go number five. I'm gonna go with Immolation, and it's gone back and forth all day between this and my number four, and this is like Ryan was saying, it still had some of that thrash to it, and that was what was really cool. Like at the time was because we were all thrash metal people that were finding heavier the next step, and a lot of the like their early Cannibal Corpse was filled with thrash metal parts, and a lot of it like it made it easier to get into this kind of music with them brutal fucking vocals like that. But Into Everlasting Fire is just an ultimate classic. Uh, uh, Those Left Behind, After My Prayers. They're such catchy songs, but yet they're so brutal. All the drumming on all of these albums is amazing. I love this album. I've seen them a bunch of times back then. I have a vintage shirt from this album and a sweatshirt from way back then too. I should have pulled them out, but so yeah, it sucks having to put any of these. It was like only today when I went through all five of these albums that I finally said, okay, it wasn't like it was no clear winner to me right off the bat. Usually it is. There's always at least the one that's going to be the last one. But today that actually switched because I thought it was going to be Incantation, Onward to Golgotha. But after listening to them both today, I don't know, something about Onward to Golgotha. It's so hellish in sounding. It sounds like it was recorded in like a cave or something. It's so brutal. I love the way Craig Pillard sings. There's no one, all of these guys, this whole like era was the most exciting time for me with death metal because like all the bands sounded different. Like these two sounded the most similar maybe out of all of this five. But this album was just incredible, and there's really nothing like it. And all five of these albums are my favorite from these bands, except for Morbid Angel. Morbid Angel was the only one where I think I like Blessed a hair more, but they're basically all my favorite albums by these bands. And it was like I said, it's such an exciting time. About let me see, Unholy Massacre is amazing. Entrapment of Evil. Christening the Afterbirth. It's got that murky production and sounds like it was recorded in a sewer, but it's so cool and there's nothing like it, and it's a groundbreaking album at the time. They got way better productions years later, but both of those albums, though they could have had better productions, would have definitely boosted them up higher. But they're both perfect, and all these albums are a 10 out of 10. There's not one song I would skip on any of these albums. Like even like when I look at my Black Sabbath favorite albums or whatever, there's always like that one song you might skip or something. There's nothing to skip on all five of these. So that's my 5 and 4.
Cool. Nick.
Hey, yeah. So, what a group of albums. So for me, the fifth number five album is Suffocation, FG the Forgotten. I respect the hell out of Suffocation. I've seen them a million times, and they're always really good. I'm just not very much of a tech like. The more tech death something is, the more each like the songs on this album, like no, one of its strengths and one of the reasons that I put it fifth is that no matter what part of this album you put on, no matter what song and no matter what, you're launched right into it, and you're in it, and it's good, but like there's nothing on it that like would stand out above anything else for me. They have, Ryan said it, they have unbelievable breakdowns. Um, it's a very, very muscular sound, and his vocals are like from the depths of the sewer there. So like they're really putting a stamp on their death metal. But for me, it's probably had the least impact on me that Suffocation in general probably had the least impact on me out of these bands. So I'm comfortable putting that at number five. Again, it's a very good album. And if I was going to listen to any technical type death metal, it would be something on this end of it, without a doubt. But number four for me, this was hard. Now it really gets hard. But I'm gonna go with where are we here? I'm gonna go with Incantation for number four. Onward to Golgotha. Again, I've another band like that I've seen a lot over the years. The murky, brutal, dark, freaking like I can't imagine. Like I got into this stuff a few years after it came out, so I can't imagine hearing it for the first time when it came out. Must have been unbelievable. But yeah, for me, I think they're excellent at what they do. Again, there's not much on here that stands out to me. Like, and each song is as good as the other ones. And I think the one strength that, or one of the biggest strengths that I would say is that there's so many new modern bands that I mean, just wish they could sound like this. Their grip on the genre was unbelievable. So. I'll put that one as my number four. Onward to Golgotha.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome, Steve Keeler. Steve, we're doing our number 5 and number 4 first in the first trip round.
Okay.
Cool. All right, Chris, what do you got for 5 and 4?
Okay. I want to say the same thing as all the other guys so far. This is incredibly tough. Every one of these albums is awesome. I did have my number one in place pretty early, and it hasn't changed. The other four, any single one of them, every time, I was like I said before, every time I listen to that, he's like, all right, this is the next, this is number 2. And then I listen to another one, I'm like, nope, that's got to go up the list. So, you gotta sit down and be a man and fucking rank them though. So somebody has to come in last. And for me, my number 5 is Immolation, Dawn of Possession. This is a killer album. I love the guy's vocals. Very dark, very evil. This one though, it just, today, tomorrow, it could be a completely different story. But today, it had to come in 5th. It's a little bit, there aren't a lot of highs and lows. It's all pretty even and steady and heavy. But nothing was really jumping out at me today. So Immolation came down at number 5. And for number 4, I went with Suffocation. I got to agree with Ryan. Fucking Mike Smith is one hell of a fucking drummer. He is absolutely fucking leaving nothing on the table on this album. He is fucking incredible. My favorite part of the album is the drumming, and there's great drumming in all death metal. Really, you can't have a fucking good death metal band without an incredible fucking drummer. This guy though, he's one of the best, and this album is fucking killer. Dark, mean, fucking evil, but unfortunately fell to number 4 today. So Effigy the Forgotten, Suffocation at number 4.
All right. Steve, over to you.
All right. Sorry, I joined late tonight. got out of work late, did a few things. Yeah, like it's a pretty tough assignment. This was a lot of these albums I haven't listened to in their entirety in many, many years. I've listened to tracks on shuffle and whatnot. But I'm gonna go number 5 with Autopsy. It's probably the band that I'm least familiar with on this list. Maybe I shouldn't be. I listened to this album a few times since the assignment was put on, and it's a freaking killer record. So I don't know if we're supposed to be doing a couple songs. The songs that I picked out from this album was For a Vacant Coffin. I like The Pagan Savior, Gasping for Air, Seeds of Suffering were some of the standout tracks for me off that album. Number 4, he's never going to be friends with me again, but I'm going to go with Incantation. Of course, John McAtee helps out on the Rock Fantasy Files a lot, and I didn't want to put him too far down, but I would out of these albums, this could all change because they're all great records, and it's hard to rank them in numbers. But Onward to Golgotha, Blasphemous Creation, Deliverance of Horrific Prophecies. I thought, and of course the Golgotha song. So those are my songs from Incantation.
Cool.
Cool.
All right.
Short and sweet I am.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, even now I'm like second guessing myself again. I just need to stop doing it already. Because these are all so similarly great, I started to look at things like, all right, well, which of these albums have the vocals that maybe I don't get into as much as others, or I start looking at production, like which ones have the worst production out of all of them, because they're all of such high quality from a drum perspective and guitars and just kick-ass songs. So I started to look at other things. And so I came to Severed Survival by Autopsy as my number 5. I really dig this a lot. I think it has the worst production out of all of these. It's really, really
What? It
I'm with
fucking
you.
sounds amazing.
It does, but it's just
I
it's
love it.
really, really murky, really, really murky. But
Yes.
Oh,
that's the charm of
Great
it,
song.
though. That's the
Yeah, it's
charm.
so good.
It's still a great album. It's a great album. I mean, to me, this kind of is a continuation of like the Scream Bloody Gore that Death was doing. I mean, Chris Reifert just basically, he continued on with what Death was doing, but he's got his own thing going on here. Horror, gore theme style of writing. It's just brutal. The whole thing is just so brutal. Charred Remains is so good. Service for a Vacant Coffin. I like how they mix, and Incantation does a little bit too. I like how they mix like some doom elements every now and then. You got like these really fast and furious songs, and then like these kind of slow doomy passages. So good. Steve DiGiorgio plays bass on this album. He's awesome as always. Anytime he plays bass on a record, it's going to be great. Pagan Savior absolutely kills. Impending Dread is another really good one. It's a great album. And Bombed is another great album, another great song. It's a great, great album. And again, the murkiness of the production is the charm of it, but I had to put something at number 5. I feel bad doing any of these at number 5, but that's what we got. And my number 4 is going to be Suffocation. Again, great album. One of like a few of the early technical death metal albums, and I really like technical death metal quite a bit, so I really appreciate that. And this was 1991, so like really so early in that. Blazing lead guitars, just blast beats everywhere, just crushing riffs. Every now and then you get this amazing breakdown that just pops out of nowhere, which is so good. The title track is so brutal. Legion of Inveracity has got, again, that's got one of the most memorable breakdowns in all of death metal, especially around this time period. Jesus Wept is so good. Mass Obliteration. Drumming is great. I like Scott Burns' production on this. I think for me, what kind of maybe puts this just a little bit lower than the other 3 is maybe Frank's vocals on here. I think he got better as he went along. And I just like the other singers a little bit better. I think Frank, you really appreciate him more when you see them live, when he's just up there and he does the hand wave and all that kind of stuff. But a great record, one of their best. I think I like others a little bit more, but it's a great, great debut, and it comes in at number 4 for me, but could be higher. Back to Ryan.
All right, now it gets tough. Whew. All right, so for number 3, not only was it tough to put this at number 3, but this kind of it's tough to say if this is my favorite album by the band or not. But generally, I I don't think it is, but it's close. And I'm gonna go with the mighty from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I had to look it up from New Jersey. Incantation. I don't know if it was Gotha. So Ralph said it. This album sounds hellish. The production on this album is just out of control. It is so fucking nasty, and it's just like this buzzing, but like not like a black metal buzz. It's like this swarm of like bees around you, but like hellish bees. I know it's hard to describe. It's one of my favorite productions of any of these albums and like in death metal in general. And Nick was right. There's been 8 zillion bands that have ripped this band off, but this album specifically, none have come close to sounding as brutal and as good as this album did. Jim Rowe on drums, man, just like Mike Smith. Again, the drumming on these albums is great. Jim Rowe puts on a fucking clinic. Craig's vocals are some of the best in death metal. Sounds phenomenal, and of course the guitars. John's guitar playing is absolutely out of control. Uh, I'm these albums, these bands, it's hard for me to pick individual songs because I just, you just throw it on, you just listen to the whole thing. That's the kind of music it is. But man, I vote with the third track, Blasphemous Creation. There's just some parts of that track that just make you want to put your fucking head through a concrete wall. It is so fucking good. Uh, I think they're as much as I like this album, though, I do have to tell you, their third album, Diabolical Conquest, I think it's a little bit better too. But that's it's like six half dozen. They're both so phenomenal. But yeah, that's my number three. You want me to do all the last three of them?
Do
I'm
one
ready.
more. Do 3 and 2. Yep.
Okay, number two then. So this one was also actually my number one was kind of locked in. So this ended up being by process elimination number two. Uh, so of all these bands, this is the only band that is not East Coast. So I feel lucky that I've seen him quite a few times now. And that has to be fucking Autopsy from California. Yeah, this album again, Chris Reifert's drumming phenomenal, Steve DiGiorgio's bass playing absolutely fucking phenomenal. Eric Cutler's guitar playing phenomenal. I can't pick songs out because I just throw the album on. I like this cover. I like the alternate artwork with like the surgeons looking down. I think they're both cool, but of course this is the original artwork right here. So I like Mental Funeral a little bit more than this one, but tiny little preference. Yeah, these guys are phenomenal too. And it's all right. They have almost like I don't want to say proggy parts, but they throw a lot of like unexpected parts in. Like it's not just like death metal as usual. They do a lot of cool shit. They throw a lot of riffs in. You're like, that could be from Black Sabbath. That could be from Celtic Frost. But it never sounds like a ripoff. Like it's always very pretty unique and like their own thing. As soon as you hear an Autopsy song, you're like, there's only one band in the world that could be like. And unlike Incantation, I don't hear a lot of bands trying to copy these guys. I almost wonder if it's almost like a Voivod thing where it's like, why even try? You're not going to succeed in copying the masters, so people don't even really go down that path too much. But yeah, that's definitely my number two is fucking Autopsy. One of the greatest.
Mausoleum sounds a lot like they definitely go down their path. They
True, but yeah, to me, and they're a cool band, but nobody matches what these guys have done. And even I tell you, of all these bands, Autopsy's newest stuff is probably my favorite. And I think all these bands are still, except for one, but for the most part, they're all still doing pretty cool stuff. But like the new Autopsy albums are really fucking good. But yeah, this one is just fucking phenomenal. So, and there's a cool picture of them on the back too, which I always thought was cool. So that is my number three and my number two.
Cool. Ralph.
All right, so number three is Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten. Coming from like I love like hardcore, heavy hardcore and the old punk hardcore stuff. So I with the whole breakdown thing, I loved it when like Slayer had the breakdown parts and a lot of the great thrash bands had their unique breakdown parts. When Suffocation hit with this album, the breakdown parts were like something you never heard before, and it really started a whole another genre. It's like that slam death metal genre. I don't even think of these guys as like a technical death metal band, and they totally are. They are amazing players. Guitar leads throughout the album are unbelievable. I love the production. Scott Burns, I think it's maybe his best production that he ever did. I love this album. I've seen him so many times leading up to this album when they had just their demos out. They were coming up to the Hudson Valley and hanging out at Morpheus Descends practice place, and They became really good friends with them guys. Even like on this album, when you open it up, uh, the band is wearing a Morpheus Descend shirt. Hobbs is wearing one, and that's actually a shirt that I designed for Morpheus Descend. I think I showed that before on this channel, but they're just such an amazing band, and this album is so fucking vicious. Um, what did I write? Yeah, a lot of these guys have been talking about the songs already. So, but "Infecting the Crypts" is just one of the greatest songs ever. I know it's such a copied breakdown by so many slam metal bands today, but when this came out, there was nothing like it, and they were just unbelievable. So, for my number two, so this was the one that went back and forth the most with me today. And it wasn't until right before like we did this that I decided that my number two is going to be Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness. Out of these five, this is the only one that is probably not my favorite of all of them. We've talked about it before. I know Nick, I think, feels the same. As Blessed Are the Sick is the one that I really love. I just think it sounds better. It's like a better production. But when this came out, there was like nothing like this. This was such a magical time with between this and Autopsy coming out that year. It was like for people that were like really into the heavy thrash and were looking after Scream Bloody Gore came out and Leprosy, like we were looking for the next kind of thing like that. Morbid Angel was right there, and to me, like they had the best guitar player, they had the best drummer. Dave Vincent was one of the best vocalists, especially as he went on and on. He just was one of those guys that could be so heavy, and you could hear every word and everything. But yeah, I got to put it at number two. They have a song called Suffocation, so that's probably where Suffocation got the name from. Chapel of Ghouls is one of the greatest death metal songs of all time. Evil Spells. I mean, you can go on and on with all the song titles from all these albums, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go number two with Morbid Angel.
Okay. I saw a guy at the gym last week who was a dead ringer for Terrence Hobbs. I kept staring at him. I'm like,
Ah.
what would he be here in Newburgh, New York? And I'm like, and I kept looking at him. I'm like, God, he looks just like him. Then I convinced myself that it wasn't him, but man, he totally looked like him because I've met him before, but I haven't seen him in ages. And I'm like, God, could he possibly be hanging around here and just working out at the gym? I'm like, ultimately, I didn't go ask, right? I was kind of like, So.
If he was hanging outside the gym smoking a joint, then I would be like, oh, that might be
Yeah, but
him.
working at this, I know, right? But he looked the hair looked exactly the same. Man,
Yeah, they're on tour right now too. So.
yeah, so I figured it wouldn't be him, but whatever. All right, Nick, over to you.
All right. So yeah, so number three, right? Where are we?
Yep,
Yeah, number three. Um yeah, it's difficult, but I'm gonna give that slot to Dawn of Possession by Immolation. I had the good fortune of meeting Ross Dolan a really, really, really long time ago. And every time I've seen Immolation, I've gotten to say hi to him and
cool
Bob.
guy.
And I mean, yeah, just one of the coolest human beings on the planet, super dedicated. Dawn of Possession is another one of those albums that just sounds fucking evil. And I love like the vocal out of this group of five albums. I gotta say Ross's vocal on Dawn of Possession is just fucking really, really stands out. And yeah, this one, I mean, I've like Ryan was saying, I think I probably like, I mean, Failures for Gods was actually the first Immolation album that I got. And just my timing, the way I got into the game, and I love the personality of it with the different styles of songs, and the strange places that they went. And I love their newer albums. I loved Harnessing Ruin. I loved their last album. What was it called? It was fucking outstanding. The last one they put out. I can't
I
think
know
of it.
I can picture it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that was fucking outstanding. And
They don't
yeah,
have they don't have a weak album at
Everything.
all.
no,
Yeah,
Every album is great.
none of almost all of these bands you could say that, except for Morbid has that one shitty album.
yeah,
But
well, yeah, well, more on that later. But yeah, but yeah, Immolation just they're just one of those special bands that just fucking just has it. And as far as this album, I would say for some reason Fallen Disease is one of my favorites off this album. It's just so goddamn good. No Forgiveness Without Bloodshed, the title track. Those are some of my favorites. Obviously their eponymous song is really good. So yeah, I'll put the good old boys from Yonkers over there.
Yeah, New
Um,
York.
Did you meet them at Rock Fantasy when they did the in-store at Rock Fantasy, or were you a little
no,
too young for that?
I
Way
didn't.
he's way too young for that.
Yeah. No, I met them.
I got this that day at Rock Fantasy. I got an 8x10 signed by the band.
What
Oh,
And
year?
nice.
I got a great
I mean, what year was that? Like 92,
Yeah, I
93?
wasn't allowed out of my neighborhood
No,
back
this was a little later. A little later.
What was it?
It was well, it was the second album. I think it was the second album. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was the
probably
second
'93.
like
album.
93. It was a
93,
long
maybe.
time
Yeah,
ago.
93 or 94.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was in 93. I was in 11th grade, and my mom wasn't.
Oh.
She watched Phil Donahue, where they talked about the kid dying at the concert. So that was
That
yeah.
So
was it.
you
If it wasn't him, it was Barbara Walters. One of those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I met Ross because I'm friends with Mary. Good old shout out to Mary Chulo. I don't know if she watches any of this. She was the bass player in Primeval, and she was friends with Ross, and she introduced me to him. And I don't, whatever. Ross probably would tell you himself, but he had like a side job, and I met him while he was working in his side job, and it blew me away because here he is wearing like a uniform with like his name on it. And it's fucking Ross Coleman. That was pretty cool. That was a long time ago. A lot of pounds and a lot of
I
hair.
was good. I was good friend. I was good friends with Mary back in the day. She hooked me
Yeah.
up with so many of my early
Absolutely.
demos from bands that like I got the Immolation demos from her and
Yeah.
a lot of bands. I mean, she was the biggest collector. She would be amazing on these channels if
Mhm.
she could come out. Like
Yeah.
she knew everybody back then. She would be a great guest.
She used to.
100%. And one of the most generous people in the world. Like and same thing. She made burn CDs for me of all stuff that at the time, like Angel Witch and things like that I had heard of, but never really, a long time ago. So yeah, so that's how I got acquainted with them.
And
So
she was in Incantation at one point too. She filled in as a bass player for Incantation for a while.
right.
And
Yeah,
of
I'm not
course,
surprised.
Mighty
She's
Primeval, she fucking
I haven't
yeah,
one
seen
of the
Mary
best
since the
bands
late
ever from the
'80s.
Hudson Valley.
Yeah, because
yeah,
Yeah, it's been a
Primeval
long time.
used to hang out in New Paltz all the time when I was going to school, and I was good friends with Andy and Mike and all those guys, and Mary used to always
yeah,
with them, and but it's been forever since I've seen her.
yeah. I've
Mary.
exchanged emails with her.
Throughout the '90s, she was still going to shows in the '90s. You'd still see her at the Chance every now and again, but then all of a sudden she just disappeared. You
Yeah.
never see her.
Yeah,
Yep.
Mary would come to my store with lists for all different people. Like she would literally have a list looking for this for someone,
Yep.
looking for a list for this one, and like sending stuff in the mail to this one. She was one of my best customers back in the day, and yeah, good
She
friend.
was sending everything overseas. She was
Oh yeah,
sending
she
all
had a
that
list
stuff
like I'm looking
overseas.
for something for this guy, and she'd go through. She'd have like a notebook with her, and she's looking for this and make a pile for this one.
She
Yeah,
came to my house one time. She went through all my albums and she was like, "Oh, I know somebody who needs this one and needs this one." And then she wanted to trade me stuff for those albums so she could send them to somebody overseas. And she was so into it. It was like no one like her.
Oh yeah,
she introduced me to one of those overseas pen pals. She had him come over and tour the area, and I became friends with him. And thanks to that connection, I went to my first 4 of these overseas fests, thanks to Mary. So cheers to
Wow,
Mary.
it's
100%.
awesome.
So so that brings us to what? Number 2?
Yep.
Number 2, it's going to be Autopsy, Severed Survival. Um, yeah, so this album and this band do a couple of things for me that I just think are, just really gets me is when I hear Autopsy, especially early Autopsy, they're a little bit of how they play reminds me of Black Sabbath mixed with like crazy frenetic death metal and all that kind of stuff. So that's the doom stuff you're referring to. They have that sound when I think it's Service for a Vacant Coffin begins, like with the Giorgio's bass. First of all, you need a goddamn fucking saw to cut through his bass tone, which is what I love. I love the bass in this. And it just delivers on all fronts. And you talk about a sound that people could try to get, but they can imitate, but that's about it. It's so goddamn good. What's the Critical Madness? That song just goes on so many different has so many different little parts going on. What I love about Autopsy, and there's the other in the back. What I love about them is they uh like they on one hand they sound they have that DIY punk like hardcore chaos in their sound, and on the other hand, they're such great musicians that it's all so well played. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Um, Again, I got into Autopsy years later than it came out, but I can imagine if you were here at the on the ground for this, it must have blown you the fuck away. And I think that a lot of the guitar playing and the sound on this album influenced my boys here from Sweden. I was looking through to see who started first. I would say that Autopsy began just a little bit earlier, and then these guys. And I would imagine that the Swedish guys were listening to Autopsy and influenced by them. I would think they are. In fact, Maddie from this band has said that they're a huge influence, of course. So they must have heard that shit and just been like, "Oh my God." And yeah, there's 3 and 2.
All right. Chris.
All right. My number 3 is Autopsy. You mentioned the bass, Nick. The bass is so high in the mix on this album compared to like every other death metal album that's ever been made.
I love it.
It's fucking awesome. I mean, it's like great to fucking hear.
Mm-hmm.
Then just the raw, ragged production of this album, it's off the chain, and it's they almost have a kind of a grind feel, like grindcore thing going on that the other bands don't. It stands out, but I definitely dig this. This is not a band that I got into years ago, actually. I sort of went around them for some reason. Love this album, so this one came in third. And my number 2 is Incantation. We talked about the production, and in my notes I put has an impressive presence of malice, which came to my head. And it's just dark, evil, mean. John sounds fucking amazing. There's tons of riffs on here that just, they keep throwing them at you. And honestly, there are like these mid-tempo parts on this album where they just start to fucking slam. And it's like, this stuff it's like, I'm not going to say old because I think this album was 91. A couple of the others were 89, so they weren't first, but, they were doing it the best.
92.
92. Yeah, I mean, they've influenced so many people, obviously, but killer album, almost made it to number 1, but today they're sitting at number 2. So
it's not a bad thing.
Incantation.
All right.
They were a big influence. Autopsy was a big influence on Incantation.
No doubt.
Yep.
What do you got for 3 and 2, Steve?
Hey, yeah. So you guys were talking about Immolation. Their last album was actually Acts of God, 2022. And the album before that, Atonement.
Oh, that one.
Man, I love that record. Fostering the Divide and
Atonement's ridiculous.
When the Jackals Come. It's one of probably could be my favorite album by them. But and they, like I said, they never put out a bad record. But I'm going with them for number 3 for Immolation, The Dawn of Possession, Into Everlasting Fire, Burial Ground, Those Left Behind. Ryan Scott mentioned before, it's hard to pick out songs because you never really listen to these albums unless you listen to them in full. I mean, I like that with every record. When I put a record on, I'm listening to the whole album. But sometimes you got it on shuffle or something when you're doing a shuffle on. I still got iPods on shuffle at Rock Fantasy, so you'll hear different songs come on at times. But that's my number 3. Number 2, my boys in Suffocation, Hobbs, one of my good friends. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of these bands on here, but hopefully they're not watching. Number 1, but Effigy Forgotten, Infecting the Crypts, Jesus Wept, which I still play a lot. Habitable, Infamy, a couple of songs I picked off of that album. It's just a classic album from Suffocation, and those guys are coming around soon. I think maybe I should go catch that tour. It's with Morbid Angel, who dropped off, so they got David Vincent's I Am Morbid, and a couple of my friends saw the tour down in Florida, so it was absolutely killer. The I Am Morbid set. He was quite happy with it. He got invited to, I believe, the rehearsals and then saw the first show with Dale Caldwell Digger. Some of you guys might know him. Does a lot of leather work for the Stars. Even did Elon Musk's leather. So, along with Abbott's and Behemoths and everybody else. But he was talking about how great the thing was. I'm not sure when it comes around the New York area. It's got to be pretty soon, right? Ralph, you know?
No, but he's got Sandoval on drums with him though.
Yeah.
So it's like kind of like half a Morbid Angel. I mean,
And they're
right
playing
now
the old stuff
Trey
too.
only Trey is the original in the in Morbid Angel right now. It's only Trey. So you're getting more of a Morbid Angel show with
When does
Diane
that
Morbid, I guess.
when does that tour hit New York area? You know, Ralph?
I forget, but you had posted it a while back,
I
and
did
I remember
post it. Yeah.
Chris Allo had commented on it, but I wasn't following it. But I had seen Morbid Angel last year come around
Yeah, I
when they
saw
played
Morbid with Crypta. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
both lineups are worth seeing, though.
for sure, for sure.
December 8th, Brooklyn, New York, Brooklyn Monarch.
There you
It's
go.
December 8th, huh?
Day after
Yeah.
day after the Sea of Tranquility show.
It's a Sunday. Yep, yep.
Dude, I'll go.
Maybe I'll go too.
All right.
Still drunk from the night before.
Yeah,
Know.
right.
Hell yeah, keep it. A whole weekend of drunk.
All right. My number 3 is Onward to Golgotha by Incantation. I mean, John's riffs are so bludgeoning on this album. I mean, it's like cavernous and just immense. And there's one riff after another, after another. And again, kind of like what Autopsy does. I love when these guys like they'll do the faster stuff and then they'll slow down to like this doomy crawl, and the riffs just get more immense and more immense. It's just so good. Golgotha totally crushes. Blasphemous Creation is just so brutal. Rotting Spiritual Embodiment is just evil as hell, and the drums just blasting away underneath these big, huge riffs, just absolutely amazing. Profanation is like, if any of these songs can be groovy, that is like a totally groovy, yet so brutal death metal track. And I think Craig's death growls are awesome on here, but it's like, it's amazing because what did he sing on the first 2, 3 albums? And then John took over
Yeah.
eventually, something like that, right?
Well, John took over way later. They had a bunch of people come in and out.
between, right? But I think they're
Yeah.
great for the music. I know sometimes some people say he was one of the weaker singers in the band, but I think he's fine on this one. And again, this one for me makes it to number 3 because I think the riffs are just absolutely tremendous, so good. My number 2,
Craig Pillard is the singer of Disma now. That Disma is his band now, and it's really killer shit.
cool. I never heard them. Okay.
They played Quinn not too long ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep, with Morpheus.
Yeah, Morpheus and Malignancy. It was a great show.
Yep.
I went back and forth on 1 and 2, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Ultimately, I went with Altars of Madness by Morbid Angel. I know most people pick it as their favorite Morbid Angel. It's always a top 3 for me. I change every now and then. It's one of the earliest death metal albums. It's absolutely classic. I mean, I think it blends perfectly, like that technical precision with just ultimate brutality. It's so good. A lot of it's really fast, where some of these other bands do some slow stuff. This is all like fast and furious. I think David Vincent's vocals are some of the best in the business. Just so good. Pete's drums are amazing, and Trey's just blend of technical riffs and then these amazing, like crazy solos. Right? They always call him like the Eddie Van Halen of death metal, but he doesn't sound like Van Halen at all. But he does all this wild whammy bar stuff and these just fast, like crazy off kilter solos, just really good. And he just
that's his biggest influence, though. His biggest influence is Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, he doesn't really
talks
to my
about
to my ears, he doesn't sound like him, but he's got that kind of sense of reckless abandonment that I think that obviously that's where he gets it from. But he's just so fresh for this genre, and you can tell like he probably digs like psychedelic music too, because there's some like weird little bits thrown into some of these songs that are kind of cool and very, very different. But yeah, it's so good. Chapel of Ghouls just crushes. Damnation is great. Visions from the Dark Side. So many great songs. But tomorrow this could be my number one because I went back and forth. This was my number one at many times over the last couple of weeks, but I ultimately went with something else. So let's go to number ones. Ryan, what do you got?
Well, number one for me, I don't think there was ever any question when you said this. This was a pretty everything else was fluid, but this was always going to be number one. This is hands down my favorite Morbid Angel album. I like Blessed, I like Covenant, but this to me, this is arguably you put a gun to my head, probably my favorite death metal album ever. It's like within there's only like one or two other albums I would consider on that level. Yeah, everything you guys said about this. Pete Sandoval's drumming, the dude, I mean, when he came out with this, I don't think anybody in the world sounded like him. But the fucking blast beats, the speed he was doing, but the precision too. He was tight as a fucking nun's ass. It was ridiculous. Trey's guitar playing, like you said, the guy's out of the fucking world. I don't even think he's a human. Like some of the stuff he's doing on these albums and subsequent albums, like he must have beamed down from like some alien planet and just happened to assume human form, and someone handed him a fucking Ironbird guitar, and off he went. But I tell you, Richard Burnell's guitar playing too, like as a team in tandem, the two of them were awesome. Vincent wasn't always, usually he's not my favorite death metal vocalist, but on this album, the guy sounds hellish. The songwriting is out of control. I love the speed. I love the fucking speed of these songs. But even some songs like Chapel of Ghouls, like the fucking very, very end of that song, the coda, when it goes into Demons Attack with Hate, that's like one of the greatest things in like the history of heavy metal. I just fucking love it. The way it like kind of like starts with Immortal Rights, where kind of it's like that reverse tracking, and then it kicks in and just goes forward with the snare kick, out of control. So yeah, to me, this was always going to be number one. I can't pick favorite songs because I would just end up reading the track list. Uh, there are not many times when I'm like, man, I wish I could have seen so and so back in the day because, you're born when you're born and it is what it is. But there's a lot of footage of Morbid Angel from like 89, 90. And I'm watching it. And I'm like, these dudes literally killed every band on the planet. Like the intensity. I can't, there is one live show I like to watch on YouTube, and now I'm drawing a blank on when it was. It was 89. But every time I watched it, I'm like, these dudes were the greatest band on the planet. Then, like, there's no band on earth that could stand up to what they were doing. Like, they would just buzzsaw every band away. And you listen to some interviews back then, and like, that was their goal. Like, that was Trey's goal. Like, our goal was to kill every other band. Like, we want to play with other bands, and, there's camaraderie and like metal brotherhood. But ultimately, we just want to kill every other band, like, just absolutely destroy them like 1,000 times over. There's no competition. And for a while, they did. For a while, they really did. And this, uh, like I said, this isn't even really their first album. There was Abominations of Desolation, which got shelved, and then it's kind of cool and pretty unique in its own right. And then, yeah, obviously they had a couple really good albums after this, especially Blessed and Covenant. And I'm also like Formula's Fatal quite a bit too. But to me, this is the fucking this is the creme de la creme. This is the fucking capstone on the pyramid. So yeah, easy number one for me. Cool picture of them too, back in the fucking day there. Yeah, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome album. I've listened to this album, I can't even tell you how many times. And I also would say the one thing about this is that when this came out, this is when Slayer, even though I like the Slayer stuff around that time too, like I like Seasons in the Abyss a lot. It was like a passing of the torch. Slayer were kind of no longer the greatest thing.
Yep.
And then this came around. It's like, all right, this is like the intensity and the speed of like what Slayer were a couple years earlier. Now these guys are doing it. So, and plus that cover work again, that artwork is just cool as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know well, actually the artwork on all these albums is fucking cool too. But yeah, this was of course was another art by, you guessed it, Dan Seagrave. Uh the Incantation one was Kim Miriam, I think. I know she did some Amorphous albums. She did a lot of stuff for Relapse Records. She did Diabolical Conquest by Incantation. I'm struggling to think who did the artwork to the Immolation or the Autopsy albums though. So if anybody knows that, it's just my brain ain't working so good here. But yeah, that is one of Dan Seagrave's coolest fucking covers. I've seen a lot of imitations of it. I got a t-shirt with it, of course. So how could you if you like death metal, how could you not fucking love this album? I don't know. You crazy. So that is my number one.
Cool. Ralph.
All right, so yeah, number one, Autopsy, and I thought it was gonna be Morbid Angel. That was the one that I thought when I first looked at this, but then as I was listening, I loved something about Severed Survival. It just when it came out, there was nothing like it. Like Suffocation came out a couple of years later, and it's such a precise, like heavy album. but this was like a more loose kind of like almost had like a punk vibe in a weird way to it. And like how he was just saying, Craig, Scout was just saying how like it went like Slayer to Morbid Angel. Like to me, it was like Slayer, then Death was like the next big step, and then it was like stuff like Morbid Angel. But Autopsy hit right at the same time, and it was actually like easier to get into than Altars of Madness. Altars of Madness, like it was like so much going on. It was like um, when you first heard it back in the day, it was a little bit harder to get into than Autopsy was a lot easier. With Steve Giorgio's bass really puts it over the top for me. His playing is just unbelievable on here, and it really stands out the way it's recorded. It's like that heavy bass sound the whole time. He's playing drums and singing the whole time, and he's amazing on drums. He's amazing singing. I loved reading the lyrics to this when it came out. Going along with the lyrics is what really makes it like so much better to me. It was kind of like Cannibal Corpse like lyrics, but then they have like the Sabbathy parts. It's like these epic doom parts going on, but then and they never did anything like. I mean, they had a couple close albums to this, but and I loved their whole discography. But to me, this is one like it just stood out way above all their other albums to me, and it's my favorite. It's one of my all-time favorite death metal albums. Ridden with Disease and the Charred Remains is just amazing. You know, Gasping for Air. Yeah, just one of my all-time favorite albums, and it's such an underrated album. And it should be anybody that likes death metal should be a fan of this album.
All right. Nick.
All right. Nothing says death metal like a Chihuahua.
Oh, wait a minute. Is that the same dog as mine? Or
I no, I meant to tell you, Steve. Our dogs are like probably separated at birth there.
They might be.
They have the same corpse paint.
Yeah, they have the same corpse paint, exactly.
They do. They have the same makeup on them.
But Angie agrees that Morbid Angel is the best one
Yeah.
of this bunch. Yeah, Altars of Madness to me is head and shoulders for me above the rest of it. I was looking through in compiling this list. It dawned on me to look at like these are debuts. So at like how much experience did each band have before their debut came out? I feel like, I mean, I could be wrong, but Morbid Angel's material on Altars of Madness, I think probably they had a little bit of a compositional advantage, perhaps, because I think these songs were around longer and maybe were worked on a little bit longer, but I don't know how true that is. That might be
It's
a
not
little.
really their debut. They recorded another whole album a couple years earlier, and they
That's
shelved
what
it.
I mean. Exactly. So
And,
these songs were like had some time to be refined, but I feel like Morbid Angel is just head and shoulders beyond like anything that was going on at the time. Um, Chapel of Ghouls and Evil Spells by themselves, if they had released a two-song whatever, those two songs alone are just, I run out of words to describe. A Maze of Torment is ridiculous. Um, they just they were vibrating on a level. I'm pretty sure Trey is like was like insane in some ways, like, but most of the great art of the world is made by people who are not quite normal. And I don't know the man, but I know he was like on some pretty hefty levels of thought and all the stuff, all the weird like ancient fucking language that they were putting into their lyrics, like on Lord of All Fevers and Plague. And I used to play that in my room, and I think I was about to summon something into my bedroom because like it was just so, out there. Um, but the the other thing about I think more Altars of Madness is that it most closely resembles the black metal that I love so much. And I think like a lot of the Norwegian guys that went off a few years later and made that whole scene. I'm for like Euronymous and stuff, for the guy from Mayhem and everything that got the wrong end of Varg's knife there. I know, I've read that this was like one of their most powerful influences, along with the requisite, Venom and Hellhammer and all that. But Altars of Madness has its own evil atmosphere, and they just had these songwriting flares that, again, I don't have the musician's language, but you know you're listening to Morbid Angel. Like there's no mistaking. And they had that going on even then. And I think the 3 albums they came out with after this were, or 4 albums they came out with after this, yeah, were all world beaters. Um, I Blessed of the Sick, I probably would give it a little bit of a nudge above this, but this is 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. Great classic cover. No bad moments, no weak moments. Everything is with purpose. Um, what do you call it? David's voice. Uh, and you could understand the lyrics a lot. Like while he was, you could hear the words. And I think for me, especially at the time when I got into this, I was coming from a less of a extreme world, and this was a great way to get into extreme metal was through this album and Blessed are the Sick. So I mean, it's just fucking perfect. It's perfect. So it's number one.
There's a lot of interviews, and I'm sure you've read a lot over the years where, yeah, that album was big on like all the bands from Sweden and Norway.
Yeah.
Like when Altars of Madness came out, that like was like I don't know. It's like hearing when people heard the Ramones for the first time. It's like the analogy I got. It's like it like changed everything. They're like, "What the fuck is this?" We got to rethink what we're doing. Like, if you heard this album yet, we need to stop and like rethink our what we're doing here.
It was
And
totally next level after Death. This was the next level. Like when this hit, like when you first heard it, you're like, "What the fuck is going on here?" And now when I hear it, because we've been listening to death metal for 30 years or whatever, it's like it sounds so clear and everything. But I just remember the first couple of times I heard it. Same thing even with Suffocation when that came out. That was a couple of years later. Like not really the album, but like the demos and stuff. And it was like, what the hell is going on here? It was so chaotic, so bludgeoning and stuff. But then it's like it was all about listening to it more than a few times, and it catches on. If someone listens to this kind of stuff once, it's not going to hit them the right way. If you put it in your car and leave it in there for a month, you'll be a different human being after.
Yeah, for
my
sure.
my introduction to more my buddy from like he moved from Poland to the US, and we became friends, and he was very like quiet. He didn't really speak much, and he came up to me one morning and just forced headsets onto my ears and just played Blessed Are the Sick at me and like in my ears at like 7 in the morning. So I did, and I went right into it, and then I got this after, and yeah, fucking hell, the best.
That's so awesome that that's like a life changing story, and I've heard you say that like 3 different times now.
Yeah, I
So it's
repeat.
important. No, it's an important moment though. It's
Yeah,
like you remember when everything changed, when everything was like, okay, this is fucking how it's gonna be from now on. It's
unreal.
awesome.
Morbid Angel takes the lead. Chris, you going to change that? Oh, you're
Mute.
on mute.
He's muted himself.
Yeah, I'm fucking muted. Okay, yeah, no, I'm not changing anything. Altars of Madness is my number one. This is the album that got me into death metal. I think when I first heard it, I think my favorite band might have been Pantera or maybe Slayer. I don't know. Um, I remember reading about them in fucking Hit Parader magazine, and they trashed them. And they were like, this band, they play good thrash metal and stuff. Their lyrics are a little stupid. With a little bit of work, they may make it someday or whatever. And that stuck out for me for some reason because I was like, all right, what other thrash bands are there? Because I didn't have a TV at the time. I was fucking in the Coast Guard. I had almost no personal possessions and no way to consume media other than like the occasional magazine. So I read about this album, and luckily, I was able to get it because a lot of this stuff was not in the stores, because I was going to like Tower Records or something like that. And I got this album and I popped it in and I got it on cassette, put it in the car, and I was, what the fucking fuck is this? I could not follow along. And I kind of shelved it for like a week, and I took it out. I'm like, wow, this is heavy shit, but it's good. I'll come back. And eventually, like Ralph said, keep it in the car, listen to it, whatever, and your brain can start to understand this music. And this is like what I love about death metal. This particular album too, out of all these, the twists and turns in tempo, riffs, They change time signatures. They're just whiplashing back and forth between different moods and pieces of music, and it's all so intricate, tight, perfectly executed, and heavy. And it just, once you get it, you get it. And this album is like, a very good one to help you get it if you don't. And, Trey is an amazing guitarist. He was blowing my mind even before I fully understood what the hell this music was all about. But yeah, this is all-time favorite, game changer of an album. So it was an easy number one. So,
And Pantera bring them on tour, and they played the Civic Center. Did you go to that show?
I was
did.
living in California at the time, so I didn't do anything much at
Yeah.
all.
I think Soulfly was the first band, and Morbid Angel and Pantera at the Civic Center.
Was that with Slayer too?
No, not Slayer.
No.
That was
They came to the Civic Center again with Typo Negative, and I don't know if Soulfly was on that show. Or if I might get them mixed up a little bit, but they played the Civic Center twice. I remember
when
both times.
Ralph, when they did the in-store at my shop, they were playing World Stage, right?
Oh well, no, they were playing the Chance. It was Primeval and Morpheus opening up for Morbid Angel at the Chance.
Okay. For some reason, I thought they were playing World Stage. I saw them.
They played the World Stage. I think that same like the night before or something.
Oh,
like,
maybe that was the connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was maybe both shows.
So what year you think? What tour was that when they came to my shop? Was it Formulas?
That was Blessed Are the Sick. Blessed Are the Sick. The second album. Yeah, the second album. Yep.
Wow.
And I was there. Wish I would have had
ago.
a camera that day. But I got an 8x10 signed by everybody from that one too. But
you don't have any photos from that day, huh?
I think I got a post.
Nick, what
No, I didn't get it. I didn't. No one brought cameras back then.
Nick, your brain's better than mine right now. Morbid Angel, Deicide, Exhumed, and Zyklon. What year was that?
That was at the World.
2001.
It was right after World of Worms came out, maybe a year later. It might have been 2000.
2000.
Yeah.
We were at the show. I didn't know you yet. We were at that show.
Yes, that's right. I was the only idiot singing every word to Zyklon.
You were one of.
There was one of two idiots. Yeah, I knew all the words. These people were annoyed with me because I was that guy that knew like the opening band.
Fuck.
And I was having a shit fit.
It might have been 2000. Yeah, because that venue wasn't long lived.
Yeah, that was a good that album, World of Worms. I think everybody on this panel would love that album.
That was Morbid Angel was touring probably for Gateways, I think.
Yeah.
Heretic wasn't out yet, but maybe Gateways.
I think it was Gateways.
All right. Anyways,
Zyklon, that was like ex Emperor guys and stuff.
Yeah, it was
like
Samoth.
Zyklon B. They were Zyklon. They were Zyklon B originally.
I think those were different guys. Yeah, they were Norwegians. But
I thought there was a connection to Zyklon B, and they changed the name to Zyklon.
They didn't really sound similar either.
Yeah, no, they it had the drummer and guitarist of Emperor and
I have that stuff. I can't. I haven't listened to it in so long.
Yeah,
Zyklon B only did that 3-song EP, which is it's really fucking good. Since they're off the rails here, but anyways,
all right, Steve, what do you got for number one?
Stay on target.
Well, I had an employee that liked Morbid Angel and death metal so much that he used to enjoy getting fevers. He actually would come to work sick, and he'd go, "I just love it when I'm sick." And he would talk about the Lord of all fevers and plagues because he felt that it was evil when he was sick. And Ralph, do you know who that employee was?
Andy Newton.
Andy Newton, yeah.
I was just thinking about when I seen Morbid Angel early on, though, Trey was still cutting himself, and it was like,
oh wow,
he was slating himself, and it was to release the demons when he came out to play live.
Wow.
It was like a way of releasing the demons to be among him while he was playing and stuff. To keep the lava flow. He would say that lava flow was all what it was about with him. That was like the guitar parts were all about the lava flow, and Eddie Van Halen was a god to him because he had the perfect lava flow.
Wow. Okay. That tops my Andy Newton story. But yeah, my number one is Morbid Angel also. Immortal Rites, Chapel of the Ghouls, Maze of Torment. Like you said, it's a perfect death metal album. I agree. I when I first looked at this sheet, I knew it was going to be number one off the. It's the album I listened to more than any of these albums, and it's in there, especially in entireties. And they have a great record, and it was an honor to have them in the store back in the day. Everybody used to joke when I had a picture of me, like an 8x10 that was floating around for many years, and they're like, "You look like the fifth member of Morbid Angel that day." So I must have looked cool back then. So.
All right. Well, it doesn't really matter what I pick because Morbid Angel has secured the win. But it looks like Ralph and I are the only ones deviating from that trend today. I'm going to go with Immolation. Honestly, I don't think Immolation has ever released an album that isn't like a 4 or 4.5 out of 5 star. I think they're just amazingly consistent and starting all the way with this debut. I mean, I love Ross Dolan's very, very distinctive vocal style. I love the drumming on this record. The guitar's just absolutely crushing. I mean, Robert Vigna has just been such a tremendous guitar player all throughout his career. And there's just, I mean, Into Everlasting Fire just opens, it just obliterates everything. It's just so good. Despondent Souls, I mean, it's got like all these cool off-kilter riffing. They got fast stuff, they got technical stuff, and these guys, some of their more recent albums are just and Suffocation too. I mean, have done these just really precise, great productions. Like their more recent albums are just as strong as some of their early stuff. And how about Those Left Behind, Mitch? Which talk about those like big cavernous riffs. It just absolutely kills. Burial Ground, total classic. The riffs and the solos are just tremendous. Vocals are great. Drums are great. Like I said, it was really tough going between this and Morbid Angel. Ask me tomorrow, I might go with Morbid Angel. But to me, all 5 of these records are classics. They're all deserving to be number one. So even though Morbid Angel is going to win this particular album war, there's no losers here because I think all of these deserve to be recognized for the greatness that they contain. And most of these bands, if not, I mean, other than a hiccup or so from Morbid Angel, all of these bands, if you look throughout their entire catalogs, have done great things, starting from the debut
Oh yeah.
recent albums. I mean, there's so much good recent albums from these bands in their catalogs. So,
They're all still going too.
Yeah.
They're all still going.
Yeah.
And look on the Immolation album though. When you look at Vigna, what shirt is he wearing? He's wearing Autopsy Severed Survival.
There you go.
There it is. Yeah.
The number one album.
That's Bob when he had hair. I feel like he
Yep,
lost
Bob
his hair.
with
And
hair.
Bob's bald and he's got this Rapunzel hair now that's like 12 feet long. I don't know. He must go through like 8 bottles of conditioner and shampoo a week, that guy.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Jeez. And then when you go to see him live, he's thrashing and his hair is getting caught in his
Windmill,
guitar.
yeah.
So you just see these giant, like
A
4 foot
monster.
long hairs flying off of his guitar and shit.
If he headbanged like George from Cannibal Corpse, I think it would push you through, like the wind would like push you through the wall.
Like
got-
Mothra.
They have a great stage presence of Immolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Actually, all these bands that
Yeah,
unfortunately, Frank's not with Suffocation anymore, but as a frontman, Frank was good. But every time I've seen these bands, they're just great live. Like they got great presence.
And
Chris
it's
Ryder.
Josh left Suffocation to join Autopsy too, which was pretty amazing. Josh was on Effigy is Forgotten. He ended up going into Autopsy because it was one of his favorite bands. And John McEntee will tell he had a guitar for years that had the Autopsy sticker, no other stickers from any other band, just Autopsy. So like that's his favorite. So all of them loved Autopsy. Probably even the guys from Morbid Angel and stuff too, But
What
and
says death
they
metal like
liked
a little
all
dog
of
with
these
a pink
guys too.
sweater here?
The ceremonial dog face watch is going on.
There you
I'm gonna
go.
say, what says death metal like a little dog with a pink sweater? Nothing.
And for those who missed it, who are watching this episode, we had both Chris Reifert and John McEntee on an episode together back. What was that, about a year ago, Ralph? Something like that? Maybe not quite.
Within the last year.
Yeah. So if you missed that episode, go check it out. That was lots of fun. And so Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness is our winner today, but like I said, all great albums here. Let us know if you like this episode because we actually have two other death metal album classics lined up for separate album wars. We have 10 other albums that we couldn't fit into this one, obviously, that we've already have separated and all set to go. So probably in January, as we kick off the new year, we'll probably pop into those as well because I think we all felt pretty strongly that there's a lot of deserving albums that could go into this format.
Yep.
As death metal debuts go from this time period. So yeah, so lots more. And I'll just I'll name some of the bands just so you guys know. We got Possessed, we got Death, we got Deicide, we got Obituary, we got Entombed, Atheist, Gorguts, Dismember, Grave, and Cannibal Corpse, right? So there's some heavy hitters there.
Oh,
All
man.
great debuts. That's right. So more to come. Rank these as you like them down in the comments below. Let's see what you guys pick. And we'll see you back here in a couple weeks for the Hudson Valley Squares. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together. All the damn time.
All the damn
Those
time.
coming to Newburgh, New York for Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest. We'll see you on stage at, I think, 2 o'clock at the Newburgh Brewery for Hudson Valley Squares panel discussion. Till then, for Steve Keeler, Ryan Scow, Nick Franco, Count Ralphus, and the Cans, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.